Anandamaadhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanyamishwaram Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we'll read from verse number 76, chapter number 18. Yesterday's Grace Pyarimon Prabhu did verse number 75. So we will continue with 76 today. So please repeat after me. Rajan Sansmritya
Rajan samsmritya samsmritya
Samvadamimam Adbhutam
samvadamivam
Adbhutam
Keshavajjunayoh Punyam
Keshavarjunaya
Keshavarjunayo
Punnam
punyam
Rishyami cha muhurmuhu
Vishyame
drashyami cha
cha
muhurmuhu
Muhurmuhu
Rajan Sansmritya
Rajan
Rajan
Shamshriyata
samsmritya samsmritya
Shamshrita
Samvadamimam Adbhutam
samvadamimam
Samvadamimam
adbhutam
Adbhutam
Keshavajjunayoh Punyam
Keshavarjunaya
Keshavarjunayo
Punnam
punyam
Rishyami cha muhurmuhu.
drashyami
Vishyame
cha
cha
muhurmuhu.
Muhurmuhu
Can some devotees chant, please?
Rajan Sansmita
Rajan
Rajan
Shamshrita
samsmritya samsmritya
Shamshrita
Sangvadam imam adbhutam
Shambhadam Imam
samvadamimam adbhutam
Adbhutam
Kesava Arjunaya Punnam
Keshavarjunaya
Keshavarjunayo
Punnam
punyam
Vishyami cha Muhurmuhu
Vishyame
drashyami
cha
cha
Muhurmuhu
muhurmuhu. Rajan samsmritya samsmritya
Rajan
Rajan
Shamshriyata Shamshrita
samvadam imam adbhutam
Sambhadam
Sangvadam
Imam
imam
Adbhutam
adbhutam
keshavarjunayom punyam
Kesava
Keshavarjunaya
Arjunaya
Punnam
Punnam
drashyami cha muhurmuhu.
Vishyame cha
Vishyami cha
Muhurmuhu
Muhurmuhu
Rajan Shamshrita Shamshrita
Rajan
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 samsmritya
Samsmritya
Sansmita
samsmritya
Shambhadam Imam Adbhutam
Samvadamimam
samvadamimam
Sangvadam
Adbhutam
adbhutam
Keshavar Arjunaya Punam
keshavarjunayo
Keshavajjunayoh
Arjunaya
punyam
Punnam
Punyam
Vishyame Char Muhurmuhu
drashyami
Rishyami
cha
Vishyami
cha
cha
muhurmuhu.
muhurmuhu. Anyone else? Any of the Prabhus would like to chant? Okay. Looks like nobody's ready. All right, so let's go with the translation and purport. O King, as I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment. Purport. The understanding of Bhagavad Gita is so transcendental that anyone who becomes conversant with the topics of Arjuna and Krishna becomes righteous and he cannot forget such talks. This is the transcendental position of spiritual life. In other words, one who hears the Gita from the right source, directly from Krishna, attains full Krishna consciousness. The result of Krishna consciousness is that one becomes increasingly enlightened and he enjoys life with a thrill, not only for some time, but at every moment. So we will read next two verses as well. And this particularly 67 and 77, there are a lot of similarities. I will just read the Sanskrit translation. Taccha sansmritya sansmritya rupamathyadbhutam hare vismayo me mahan rajan prishyami cha punah punah. O king, as I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with wonder more and more, and I rejoice again and again. But it appears that Sanjaya also, by the grace of Vyasa, could see the universal form Krishna exhibited to Arjuna. It is of course said that Lord Krishna had never exhibited such a form before. It was exhibited to Arjuna only, yet some great devotees could also see the universal form of Krishna when it was shown to Arjuna, and Vyasa was one of them. He is one of the great devotees of the Lord and is considered to be a powerful incarnation of Krishna. Vyasa disclosed this to his disciple Sanjaya, who remembered that wonderful form of Krishna exhibited to Arjuna and enjoyed it repeatedly. So there is a lot of similarity in these two verses. So in the previous verse as well, Sanjaya was speaking. These last few verses are being spoken by Sanjaya. And who is Sanjaya? In Bhagavad Gita, what is his role?
The TV for Dhritarashtra.
Yeah, he's the television for Dhritarashtra.
But
So
isn't he the Dhritarashtra's secretary, though? Is that his role?
Yes, he is the Dhritarashtra's secretary, and he is the one who is, relaying this message of the Bhagavad Gita. He's transmitting what's happening on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He's describing this to Dhritarashtra.
He's the narrator.
Yes, he's the narrator. So in the very beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, it was Dhritarashtra who asks a question, right? After my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, O Sanjaya, what happened? Kima Kuruvat Sanjaya, right? So we have that word Sanjaya. So Dhritarashtra is speaking to Sanjaya, and then the next word started, Sanjaya Uvacha. So from then on, Sanjaya has been speaking. He explained how Drishtva Pandavani Kamyudam Duryodhanastata Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Bravi. After seeing the army that was arranged by Drishtadyumna, after Dhritarashtra saw that, he went to the Acharya, Dronacharya, to talk about his strategy. So that's where it started, and Sanjaya has been describing the entire Bhagavad Gita. And then now finally it came to a conclusion. And in verse number 76 and 77, what are some of the words that are repeated? Were you able to identify some of the words that Sanjaya is using in both of these verses? Let me put it in advance.
Hiroshima?
Sorry, what did you say?
The Hiroshima is near the last.
Okay, Hrishyami. Okay,
Hrishyami.
Very nice. Yeah, very nice. Hrishyami. Let me put it in this. This way. For those of you who do not know Vedabase.com, there are wonderful features. You can go to what's called advanced view. And then in this advanced view, you can see the entire chapter in one view. This is very useful. This website is made by one of my god brothers, Prahlad Narsingha. Actually, this is a project my Guru Maharaj has started when we were doing our Bhakti Shastri for our Bhakti Vaibhava studies. So initially we had the desktop version. So this is a Maharaj's inspiration, and it's very, very useful. It's used all over the world now, even cited in scholarly researches also as part of the links. Okay, so if you see 76 and 77, let me turn off the Devanagari and it becomes easier. Okay. Oops, sorry. Go back. All right, so you can see this together, two verses, 76, 77. So you see Rajan Sansmritya. And in 77 also he uses the word Rajan, but it goes in a different section. In Sanskrit, no matter where you put, it doesn't make a difference. The words, the meaning will still remain the same. So Rajan, here also you see Rajan Samsmritya, and he said Tacha Samsmritya, and here he has the Rajan. And as one of the devotees mentioned, Hrishyamicha Muhurmuhu, and here he has Hrishyamicha Punaha. These two words have the same meaning. Muhurmuhu and Punah, they have exactly the same meaning. It means again and again. So however, here he's in 76, he's remembering Samvada imam adbhutam. He is remembering this wonderful samvada, the dialogue between who? Keshavarjunayo Punyam. This very auspicious and pious dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Keshavarjunayo Punyam Samvadam. This very auspicious dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, as I remember it, Sansmritya, not just remember, as I keep on remembering this dialogue, I feel so happy. Hrishyamicha muhurmuhu. I rejoice it again and again. And in verse number 77, again Sansmritya, and also Adbhutam. Here also something wonderful. What is it that he is remembering here? He is remembering Rupam Adbhutam. He is remembering this wonderful form of Krishna. Vismayome, Mahan Rajan. And this is also not just wonderful, but this is something very, very, this particular Rupam that is being talked about is the Vishwarupa. When Arjuna also saw that Vishwarupa, it's so wonderful, it's bewildering. There are so many emotions that Arjuna has expressed after seeing that wonderful form. So this great form also Sanjaya is recollecting. And he is feeling happy having this opportunity to hear this dialogue and as well as to see this form. But how was he able to do all these things? How was he able to see the form? How was he able to hear this dialogue?
By the mercy of Vyasadeva.
Yes, by the mercy of Vyasa, which was mentioned in the previous verse. Vyasa prasada chutavan. Right? I heard this guhyam, this very confidential dialogue. Vyasa prasada chutavan etad guhyamaham param. Yogam yogeshwarat krishnat. And he heard this most confidential knowledge, most confidential yoga from the master of yoga, Sri Krishna. Not just master of yoga. Yoga is often also translated as mysticism. So Krishna is the master of this mysticism also. So he was so fortunate, he was able to directly hear the dialogue. By the mercy of Vyasadeva, he was able to do this. Not only hear the dialogue, but he also saw the universal form. Now, Krishna has mentioned that this form that Arjuna, he's going to show to Arjuna, it wasn't shown to others previously. And Srila Prabhupada is mentioned in the purport, has mentioned in the purport that it seems when Krishna has shown the universal form, some of the elite devotees, they were also able to see this form. And he says, so Vyasadeva obviously saw it. The mercy of Vyasa, then Sanjaya was also able to see this particular form. So Vyasadeva gives Sanjaya this ability to see it so that he can tell Dhritarashtra what has been happening. So this, the one thing is hearing. There's a chat message, 1 second. Okay, so one thing is hearing, and what is the next step after hearing? So we have 9 processes of devotional service. Does anyone remember the beginning 3?
Kirtan,
Yeah, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and then
Padasevan, Smaran,
Smaranam. Yeah, Smaranam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. So the first step is to hear. And the more we repeat what we hear, the more our recollection, our Smaranam will enhance. So therefore, if we just hear, we'll forget. So knowledge that is not used is lost. And wealth that is not invested is also lost, right? As good as if you have money and it's not properly invested, it's as good as, just sitting there doing nothing. And same thing when we have knowledge, if we don't give it to others, if you don't practice, if you don't preach, then it's lost. Same thing, you say a lot of devotees here may be working in technological field. Say if you have learn some coding, but if you don't do, you lose it, right? Use it or lose it. So therefore, the more we use it after Shravanam, the more there is Kirtanam, then it will also transform into Smaranam. So the more it gets into Smaranam, we start to live that life of devotion. It has to become a habit. We need to, what we hear, like when Ganapati Govinda Prabhu was saying, when after we hear Arjuna, after he heard the whole thing, he had questions. I mean, he asked Krishna, why is it like that, like this? How should I understand what you're saying? So he had so many questions, but once he understood everything, then he wanted to put it in practice. Karishe Vachanam Trava. So Krishna consciousness is such that as we should keep on hearing, and then we should implement it. In the beginning, it's some work, right? To make it, to implement it, we have to do it every day. There's a research that was done that if you do something for 21 days, at least 21 days, then it can become a habit. It can turn into a habit. So we have to regularly practice what we hear. But part of that process is to recollecting what we have heard by talking about it, by also contemplating dhyana. Even in Patanjali Yoga process, this dhyana is very important. So we have to recollect what we heard before we go to bed. Even we can think, what did I do today? What are some of the things that I heard today? And then pray to Krishna that Krishna, I heard these things. Please give me strength to be able to practice some of these things in my own life. And even just remembering some of these stories, not everything may be for practicing. Suppose if we are not doing something, okay, we got some information, some lesson, therefore I'm going to do it in this particular way. But some of them it's not even practicing. For example, it's Krishna's pastime. Say Krishna stealing the butter. But we can hear that thing again and again and again and again. No problem, right? So that constant smaranam of that Leela it will purify our consciousness. It is no longer just information, right? What is the capital city of, say, India? You say New Delhi. That's information. Oh, I already know that. Don't tell me again. But if we hear about, say, we're singing the same Namamishwaram throughout the Kartik, Damodarashtakam. But why should we hear it again and again? I already know, okay, Krishna stole the butter and Mother Yashoda bound him up and then he was crying. Okay, tell me more. But it's the same thing again and again. But why do we hear it again and again and again, the same thing? It is because it will purify our consciousness and it will also increase our love for Krishna, and our relationship with Krishna will become stronger. So this is a process. It is relishable again and again and again, just like we eat prasadam and we eat again and again to stay strong, to stay healthy. Similarly, the spiritual pastimes and Bhagavad Gita, scriptures, these are the things that to be remembered again and again and again and again for our purification, to remember, and also ultimately that's what will give us pleasure. And what is the devotee praying in Damodarashtakam? Let this vision of Bala Gopala be always there in my heart. I don't need anything else. I forgot what was that verse. Idam teva purnata Gopala Balam. What was the line after that? Yeah, sadame manasyavirashtam. How does that go? Yeah. So let this form of Bala Gopala ever be manifest in my heart. This is what the big yogis are all saying. Patanjali Yoga, when we practice meditating on the form of the Lord, you're just seeing the form. But higher than the form is then you go into the activities of Krishna. What are some of the activities he's performing and getting absorbed in those activities? This is all part of Smarana. So now Sanjaya, he finished it, but then he's recollecting that thing that was already done, and just that recollection has put him, and his hair was standing on end. He's getting these goosebumps just by recollecting what's going on. Wow, that's a wonderful verse Krishna has spoken. And it must have happened in a lot of your lives as well. Say we are in a particular situation and then we don't know what to do. And suddenly you remember one verse of Bhagavad Gita. And that verse of Bhagavad Gita is so appropriate to that particular situation, and that immediately you solve the problem. This something that's bothering in your mind or you don't know what to do, immediately it gets resolved by this verse of Bhagavad Gita. And man, it feels so good. Wow, that was so nice. So now imagine Sanjaya, and he's having so much, to see by remembering this dialogue that has happened between Krishna and Arjuna. And it is just not any normal dialogue, right? It is Punya Samvadam. This is Punya Samvadam. It is the most auspicious dialogue. Every word that is coming from Krishna, this is mantra. Bhagavad Gita shlokas, Bhagavad Gita verses, these are mantras, the Vedic mantras, and even higher than that actually. So Sanjaya is feeling this ecstasy. And not only that, also remembering that Vishwarupa. But for us, it may seem, okay, now we'll finish last verse, Bhagavad Gita is done, finish over. It's like now I'm done with my 16 rounds, I can do whatever I want, right? So, but Sanjaya, he has finished it, but he's, relishing that one. I wish when we finish our 16 rounds, we could think, oh, I finished my 16 rounds. Krishna's holy name was so good, right? But we're like, put the big bag over there, I'm done for today, bye. Right? So we can see how fortunate Sanjaya is, blessed by the mercy of Srila Vyasadeva. He is going through these ecstatic symptoms by recollecting Krishna's form and the dialogue of Krishna and Arjuna. So we'll go to verse number 78. Maybe devotees can repeat this verse. This is the last verse. We can all participate. So please repeat after me. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna
Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna
Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha
Yatra
Partho
Partho Dhanurdharaha
Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti
Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama
Dhruvani Mati Mama
Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna
Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna
Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha
Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha
Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir
Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhuti
Dhruvani Tirmatir Mama
Dhruvani Tirmati Mama.
Translation. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Purport. The Bhagavad Gita began with an inquiry of Dhritarashtra's. He was hopeful of the victory of his sons, assisted by great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. He was hopeful that the victory would be on his side, but after describing the scene on the battlefield, Sanjaya told the king, "You are thinking of victory, but my opinion is that where Krishna and Arjuna are present, there will be all good fortune." He directly confirmed that Dhritarashtra could not expect victory for his side. Victory was certain for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Krishna's acceptance of the post of charioteer for Arjuna was an exhibition of another opulence. Krishna is full of all opulences, and renunciation is one of them. There are many instances of such renunciation.
What? Yeah, I forgot to turn it off.
I think someone is not on mute. Devotees, if you are not speaking, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. So victory was certain for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Krishna's acceptance of the post of charioteer for Arjuna was an exhibition of another opulence. Krishna is full of all opulences, and renunciation is one of them. There are many instances of such renunciation, for Krishna is also the master of renunciation. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport is reminding us that the reason Dhritarashtra asked that question at the beginning that we already talked about was because Dhritarashtra was hopeful about the victory. He was thinking Duryodhana would win the battle. And Duryodhana's situation is a very, pitiable situation. Dhritarashtra's. He is the father of Duryodhana, and he had so much attachment to Duryodhana. So many people have suggested Dhritarashtra that he should just abandon his son, that Duryodhana was simply misleading him. Who are some of the people who guided Dhritarashtra, who told Dhritarashtra that what he was doing is not right?
Vidura and Bhishma.
Yes, Vidura told him, Bhishma told him. Who else?
Krishna himself.
Okay, Krishna himself. Actually, Sanjaya also told him. He was a messenger in between the two parties. He also, told him. And there's someone else. Does anyone remember? The gopis don't like him.
Oh, Balram?
Akrura. Akrura.
Akrura.
Yes, Akrura. Don't bring his name in front of gopis. You'll be in trouble. So Akrura, after Krishna came from Vrindavan to Mathura, he sends Akrura to find out how Pandavas are doing. And when Akrura visits, he also tells Duryodhana. He kind of observes what's going on. And he also tells him, and he says, what can I do? I know, Krishna is a great person, Pandavas are pious souls, but this attachment, what can I do? I'm helpless. This is my karma. Sometimes people say, what can I do? This is my karma. You're fortunate you became devotee because you have good karma. When my time comes, I will, but that's what I am. So they flatly deny. They just don't want to. And Duryodhana is so strong attachment. Dhritarashtra, his attachment was so strong, and he was hopeful. After Sanjaya spoke all this, what do you expect? Sanjaya, after hearing Bhagavad Gita, after knowing that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sanjaya personally saw that all the Kauravas, everybody, they are going into the mouth of Krishna like the moths entering the fire. After watching this on the television on the big screen on a Friday night, watching the football game, and you already know who is winning the game, and even if that person has drunk lots of beer and is sort of intoxicated, still he can figure out that who is winning the game. And here you go, Dhritarashtra, even after this thing, he won't give up. And how amazing, how surprising, how, this is so uncommon, right? The attachment that Dhritarashtra had was so deep. And also Sanjaya's character, Sanjaya, he was the secretary of Dhritarashtra, but was he just trying to be a yes man? Was he just trying to say something that Dhritarashtra would like and increase his salary or give him something? No, Sanjaya is speaking the truth. He's not afraid of saying the truth, speaking the truth. And this is something wonderful we find in various characters in Mahabharata. Their integrity was so strong, so powerful, that Sanjaya was simply relaying to Dhritarashtra the facts. Not that, Dhritarashtra, actually we're going to win, we will win. And now modern day politicians, right? People around him, they just say the things that their master would like. But Sanjaya was not that kind of secretary. He was giving the information as it is. He was not polluting the message. He was speaking Bhagavad Gita as it is to Dhritarashtra. Even though his master doesn't want to hear the Bhagavad Gita as it is, but Sanjaya was giving Bhagavad Gita as it is. So he is one of the true distributor of Bhagavad Gita and the message of Krishna. So we can also see from character of Sanjaya that we also preach the message of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Krishna as it is, regardless of what kind of benefit we may get or not. We have to give the message properly, and Sanjaya is a good example for that. So he's saying wherever there is Krishna, wherever there is Arjuna, victory is guaranteed. So this is a very important thing for us, particularly for those who are coming from India and who must have heard this sentiment. There's a beautiful picture of Krishna and Arjuna on the chariot. And it's just Krishna riding the chariot and Arjuna is standing in the back with his bow and arrow. Do you all know what picture I'm talking about?
Cover of the Gita.
Yeah, on the Bhagavad Gita. And so a lot of people have, they frame that picture and put it in the house. But some people, they do not want that picture in their house. Did anyone hear about this?
They think that it will initiate the war.
Yeah, they think, I don't want this because this will create enmity in our family between the brothers. There'll be a fight. But according to this verse, what does it say? You have a picture of Krishna and Arjuna, all good fortune to you. What are some of the things that Sanjaya is saying? There will be Tatra, Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Niti. 4 things. Shri, Vijaya, bhuti and niti. All these things will be there. Wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjuna. Why would there be any problems? So this is just a, what do you call these things? Some things that are which are not facts, but people have this belief. What do you call them? In Muda Vishwas is you can say in language.
Superstition?
Yes, superstitions, right? Some sort of superstition. It's not true that, okay, just having this picture of Krishna and Arjuna and there'll be fight in your house. No, that's not true. On the contrary, there'll be righteousness, there'll be opulences, there'll be, victory, there'll be lots of wealth. Everything will be there, no problem. Wherever there's Krishna and wherever there's Arjuna. And because there's a talk about opulences, Srila Prabhupada also says this opulence of renunciation, Krishna acting as Arjuna's driver is an exhibition of his renunciation. So people may say, okay, what's the big deal about becoming a driver? It may not be in some places, but in India, becoming a driver is some people will think, oh no, I'm not going to do that job. So I think one time, one devotee told me, a person asked Radhanath Swami, well, what is the big deal about being a driver? How is that humility on Krishna's part? And I heard Radhanath Maharaj said that, well, if you become a driver, it may not be a big deal. Or if I become a driver, it may not be a big deal. But to be the master of not just Europe, not just Asia, not just the United States, not just the earthly planet, not just this tiny universe that we are in, not just the material world, but the entire creation. Being the master of all of this entire creation of all the living entities, and then becoming a simple driver of one of the living entity, that's something great. That's real humility. For us, it's not a big deal because we are nothing. We don't have anything. So it's not a big deal for us. So this is Krishna's humility. It's Krishna's renunciation. So this is very, very important point to understand that how renounced Krishna is. And also, wherever there is Krishna and Arjuna, there is victory. Now, why Sanjay is saying that, and Prabhupada is mentioning here that the actual battle is between Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. The fight is between two of them. And because Arjuna and Krishna are on the side of Yudhishthira, therefore Yudhishthira's victory is guaranteed. The fighting is not between Arjuna and Duryodhana. The fighting is actually between Yudhishthira and Duryodhana, amongst them who will become the king. That has to be decided. So Sanjaya clearly predicted that the power will be transferred to Yudhishthira. And here Yudhishthira is also mentioned as the righteous person. One of the name of Yudhishthira is Dharmaraja. And Srila Prabhupada is saying here, he never spoke a lie during his lifetime. Some people say, well, when Duryodhana talked about Ashwatthama, the death of Ashwatthama, because when Yudhishthira Maharaj has uttered that Ashwatthama Hataha and Dronacharya, he had to, he becomes bewildered, and that's when Dronacharya could be overpowered. So when he said that, his chariot touched the ground. It is said Yudhishthira's chariot, because he was so righteous man, it wouldn't touch the ground, but at that moment it touched the ground. So some people say, because he lied, it touched the ground. But our acharyas explained that actually because he hesitated to say that, Krishna instructed him, Yudhishthira, you say this thing. And this is how we'll overpower Dronacharya. But Yudhishthira, he hesitated because he didn't want to say that, because he knew it was not Ashwatthama did not die. So Bhima goes and he kills an elephant whose name is Ashwatthama. And says, now you say it. He says, Ashwatthama hataha. And he says, Kunjaraha na naraha. The elephant, slowly, it's an elephant and not a human being. That's what has been. But that's, I think that he utters himself so that nobody hears or something like that, because he doesn't want to go wrong. But yes, Bhima made sure an elephant, Ashwatthama actually died by hitting an elephant. So anyway, I just wanted to say that it is not because he spoke that the chariot hit the ground. It is because he hesitated to follow the Krishna's instruction. Because whatever Krishna says, that is the dharma. Krishna is the absolute truth. In English, this word truth is there, which means, whether it is correct or not. But the Krishna is called Paramasatyam. The word Satyam comes from Sat. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means, one of the meaning of Sat is the existential potency. The eternal aspect is the Sat. And Krishna is called Paramasatyam, the absolute truth. Satyam comes from Sat, and then Krishna is the Paramasatyam, absolute truth. So whatever Krishna says, whatever Krishna instructs, that is Paramasatyam. Whatever is coming from Paramasatyam is the Satyam. So this we must understand that Dharmantu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. What is dharma, what is not dharma, that is put forward by Sri Krishna. What Sri Krishna says, that is the truth. So because Yudhishthira hesitated, that's why the chariot touched the ground. It has nothing to do with the so-called morality of the world. So now, in the next paragraph, Prabhupada talks about the less intelligent person. They take Bhagavad Gita to be a casual discussion between friends on the battlefield. And Prabhupada says that if that's the case, this book would have had, no value. Bhagavad Gita. Why would someone just hear a dialogue with friends? So many thousands and thousands of years glorified by the greatest acharyas from time immemorial. Actually, the Bhagavad Gita existed even before they gave it to. So these instructions are the supreme instructions. And amongst the instructions, Srila Prabhupada points out two verses. One is 934, and another one the verse that we read in this chapter itself. So Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakta mentioned twice. It comes, I believe, 1865 as well as 934. So Krishna's instruction is Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakta. Become my devotee. Always think of me. Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Worship, offer your respects unto me. In this way, you will come back to me. And Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. Give up all other dharmas and then surrender unto me. This is the instruction of Krishna. And these are the what we just talked about, these two verses, and particularly the verse Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. This is the supreme instruction of Krishna. And then Prabhupada talks about the other processes that have been discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. What are some of the things that were discussed in the Bhagavad Gita? Different yogas.
Karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga.
Correct. Karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, right? All these things were discussed. So Prabhupada here is saying we can realize oneself by philosophical speculation and by meditation. So which is talking about the jnana and yoga processes. But the highest perfection is the bhakti, to fully surrender unto Krishna. This is the bhakti process. And this is the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. And he also talks about the Varnashrama Dharma principles. It was also discussed in this particular chapter, acting according to our modes. And the word dharma often means Varnashrama Dharma. But this is, Krishna is saying, Parityajya. Whatever he has spoken about Varnashrama Dharma, even in chapter 18, give up. Parityajya. Whatever he has talked about Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Parityajya, give up. Oh, why? You spoke all these things and at the end you're saying you give it up. The highest principle is to surrender unto him. If you cannot do, then you do these other things. The highest thing is to surrender unto Krishna. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaishyami ma shuchaha. Do not worry. There's no need to be fearful. One who comes to bhakti, everything else will be taken care of. That is the essential principle, is surrendering to Krishna. And everything else is the spent of these principles. What is that? Smartavya satatam Krishna. Always think of Krishna, and I think ma vismritya kadachana, something like that. Never forget Krishna. And all other principles are etayoho kinkaraha. All other principles are simply servants of these two principles. Always think of Krishna, never forget Krishna, and everything else is subservient to these principles. So surrendering to Krishna is the highest principle, and everything else, all other principles are subservient to these particular principles. And surrendering unto Krishna in full Krishna consciousness, and this is the most confidential instruction. And this is the essence of this 18th chapter, as Srila Prabhupada is mentioning in this verse. And then Srila Prabhupada also talks about Krishna and his three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan features. Were these discussed in Bhagavad Gita anywhere? These three principles, was Brahman discussed in Bhagavad Gita?
The 10th chapter.
Does anyone, where does Krishna say Brahman is subordinate to him? What was the, does anyone remember the Sanskrit for that? Brahmano hi pratishtaham. This may be in, is it 9-10? Someone can look up. So Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I am the basis for this impersonal Brahman. Krishna said, so he is superior to Brahman. How about Paramatma? Where does he talk about Paramatma? Does he talk about Paramatma in Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Yes, multiple times actually. Multiple times he talks about it. One is Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sannivishta, I am situated in everybody's heart. And also even Kshetra Jnanam in that 13th chapter, he says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarvatra bharata. I am also over in all the ways. Also talks about Uttama Purusha. I am Uttama Purusha, Paramatmyeti Udahritah, and I am known by the name of Paramatma. In 15th or 16th chapter, I forgot where this is from. So yes, he said, I am the Paramatma. Brahman is resting upon me. I am the Brahman, and I am the Paramatma. And where does he say that Supreme Person? And the Bhagavan feature. There are multiple places. Mattaraha parataram nanyat kinjasi dhananjaya. There is nothing superior to me. That form that is standing in front of Arjuna, he is pointing to himself. He is telling Arjuna, Arjuna, there is nothing superior to me. That person standing in front of Arjuna. He also showed him Vishwarupam. He showed him the different forms of Vishnu form also. Within his form, he showed all the demigods. Within his form, he showed all the universes, everything. There is nothing superior to him. And Arjuna says, Parabrahma, Parandhama, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavan, Purusham, Shashvatam, Divyam, Adidevam, Ajam, Vibhum. You are Parabrahmanandayama. You are nothing superior to you. Aham Adirhi Devanam. I am the original Deva, the Adi Deva. And nobody knows about me. Even demigods, they do not know about me. Even all the rishis, they do not know about me. But I myself am declaring it to you. This is why Krishna came, so that there should not be any speculation of whether Krishna is personal, whether Krishna is impersonal, who is God. There's no doubt. We should have no other doubt after hearing Bhagavad Gita. So many scriptures are there in the world. There's Bible, which was given about 100 or 150 years after Jesus Christ left. There's Quran, which was Prophet Muhammad heard. But Bhagavad Gita, Supreme Lord directly came and spoke to Arjuna. And he's standing in front, in the battlefield, in front of few millions of people and speaking, I am God. And it is documented. So why do we need to have any kind of doubt? So this we must accept by the authority of great sages. So then Krishna, the living entities are we are Krishna's part and parcels, and material energy, external energy, this is also energy of Krishna. So everything, all these aspects are discussed. And then Prabhupada summarizes that there are principles in the Bhagavad Gita. Can anyone tell what the 5 subject matters of Bhagavad Gita are? Prabhupada discusses this in the introduction, and I don't think he points this out anywhere else except in this purport again.
Jiva, Prakriti,
Jiva.
Karma,
Jiva, Prakriti, Karma, Ishvara. One more.
I said Kala and Karma, right?
Okay, yes, okay, yeah. Kala, Karma, Jiva, Ishvara, and Prakriti. So these 5 items are discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, and everything, all the 4 are dependent upon one item, which is Ishvara. All the other 4 are emanations from Ishvara and dependent upon Ishvara. They are all his energies. So the Prakriti, the initial manifestation, from that actually time also manifests. And when the Jiva interacts with the Prakriti, then karma is produced. And Jiva is trying to dominate the Prakriti and enjoy the fruits. Karma is there. So all of these are the energies of the Lord. And Krishna is that absolute, that supreme reality, that supreme personality of Godhead, absolute truth. He is known by the name Krishna, who is the most attractive. And Prabhupada also talks about Achintya Bheda, Bheda Tattva, how Lord Chaitanya's philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference, living entities are one with the Lord in quality, but different from the Lord in quantity. So we also have the qualities of Sat Chit Ananda, but our level of these qualities are dependent on whether we are situated in spiritual energy of the Lord or material energy of the Lord. If we are situated in the material energy of the Lord, our ananda is temporary because we are trying to get that ananda from the material things. Our consciousness is also prone to ignorance, so we don't have full knowledge. And our aspect of eternality is covered by birth and death. So we think we don't exist after death. But in the spiritual, we overcome mrityu. Tameva viditva mrityum taranti. The Vedas proclaim, by knowing the Lord, we can overcome the death. So this is how a living entity uses his independence and surrenders that independence in the service of the Lord. And then he actually becomes one in quality with the Lord properly and exhibits his Sachidananda Rupam as well. And in that state, he will become one with the Lord in quality. And as we develop deeper relationships with the Lord, that difference starts shrinking and shrinking more and more to the point that in Vrindavana, nobody even thinks Krishna is God. What to speak of, nobody thinks Krishna is God. Even Krishna thinks whether he's God or not. Because nobody treats him like a God, and he wonders what's going on. Because that love and intimacy is so powerful. And that is Lord Chaitanya's philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference. We are different in the sense we are individuals, and we are one in the sense that we are one in purpose. Krishna's purpose is our purpose. We want Krishna to be happy. We want to take part in Krishna's goals. Whatever Krishna wants, the devotees want to fulfill. And sometimes devotees does that in such a way that even Krishna is amazed. Wow, how is it that my devotees did this in such a wonderful way, that which even brings surprise for Krishna. Devotees can throw surprise parties to Krishna. We have this surprise birthday party, surprise this, surprise that. But Krishna gets surprised by how devotees enhance his pastimes. So in that sense, there can be inconceivable oneness and difference. And then finally, in the last purport, Prabhupada says what I kind of already mentioned. In other words, the living entity is situated between the two energies of the Lord, and because he belongs to the superior energy of the Lord, he has a particle of independence. By proper use of that independence, he comes under the direct order of Krishna. Thus, he attains his normal condition in the pleasure-giving potency. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of its conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, and all the Vaishnavas who read Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Any questions, comments from anyone?
I was remembering the line in the introduction where Prabhupada says Bhagavad Gita has everything that can be found elsewhere, but also nothing that can be found. But more
Yes,
than everything else that is elsewhere, it has something more.
yes, very nice point, Sukopi. So whatever we may find in other religious traditions also, the principles will be found in Bhagavad Gita. But there will be something higher. Neither Quran nor Bible talks about the characteristics of God, God as a person in a deeper way. What is God's name? All these things are not known. But Bhagavad Gita provides that information as well. It even talks about his abode.
Especially the Sarva Dharman Parityaja, when you were talking about that. Everything else that's explained previously.
Yes.
And out of those 5 subject matters, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. Karma is not eternal, but all others are eternal, right?
Correct. Yes.
That
So
is
karma,
because we have to give that up to go back to our constitutional position.
Yes. So the karma is individual. That's why once you get liberated, your karma doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So from that perspective, but material nature is still there. And other individuals are there and their karma is there, but our karma is no longer there.
And I just wanted to make a comment because in our morning program, we started reading the Bhagavad Gita. And we just, yesterday, I just happened to read the second verse in which Dhritarashtra, not only did he not listen to the advice of the great personalities you mentioned, which is Vidura, Bhishma, Sanjaya, Krura, and Krishna himself, I was actually surprised to read that because probably had not registered in my mind when I'd read it before. Dhritarashtra is almost afraid that Duryodhana might change his mind by the influence of the Dharma Kshetra.
Yes.
I mean, which father would? I mean, not only does he not advise Duryodhana not to do it, he's afraid that by the influence of the Dharma Kshetra, he might change his mind. That
Yes.
really boggled my mind.
Yeah, that was the reason why he used the adjective dharmakshetre, because
Right.
he was afraid.
He could have thought, like, by the influence of this dharmakshetra, at the last minute, my son might at least change his mind and not do the war. But
Correct.
such was his attachment and greed for his son to sit on the throne.
Yeah. Yes.
Whereas on the other hand, Yudhishthira, even after he won the war, he doesn't feel good about sitting on the throne because he has killed so many Akshavinis of animals and human beings and so many living entities.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's precisely why Krishna wanted to put Yudhishthira on the throne. That the qualification for a job is not, that person who wants the job, right? Who says, I'm going to do it, I'm the enjoyer, but rather who does it in a mode of detachment. That's a Vedic perspective.
What do they say that here? Servant.
Yeah, servant leader, you meant?
Servant leader.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Very nice realizations. And probably Gita Malamataji, you are the one probably who attended most of these classes, or maybe all of them.
Thanks to COVID. I think I got a full flavor.
Yeah. Do you have any realization for finishing this? Those devotees who have done this yajna?
We started reading from the beginning again, first verse, in our morning program. And someone was saying, I read it for like the third time and still, I'm gaining more realizations from it. My realization was that no matter how many times you read it, you still get a new flavor and a new realization each time.
Exactly. What to speak of us, even Arjuna.
Arjuna,
he heard it on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, but when Krishna left here for a little bit of period, he was bewildered. And then he recollects the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, then immediately, this transcendence, it transcends upon him, it descends upon him, right? And then he becomes sober again. So that tells us that it's regular practice for us. We must remind ourselves every day of these instructions. Dina dina snanam. We have to take bath in Bhagavad Gita every day. That's our shot.
And also we can say that always where is the truth, always wins the race.
Yes. Wherever there is Krishna, there is Niti also, right? There is morality.
Yeah,
truth,
Krishna is the truth and he always wins the race.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
So Prabhuji, regarding the one of the subject matter in Gita, that is Kala. So that's something I would like to share that I was hearing in one of the ISKCON lecture, that Kala is a time, and Krishna himself declared, I am time, in one of the chapters in Bhagavad Gita. But in the
Sarvakshayakrit, time, I am the destroyer of everything.
Correct. And however, but in the material world, right, some many times we hear this comment, oh, this is bad time going on, sometimes good time going on in my life. So we actually give labels to the time. It's a bad time and a good time. And when I think, and then Bhagavad Gita even answer that question from chapter 2, Matra Sparshas tu Kaunteya, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkhada. So I think because of the bodily conception of thinking, we consider time is bad or good, but time is always pure because it's Krishna. So that's something I would like to share to you.
Yeah. He said time, Krishna is also saying time destroys. Point you mentioned, time is Krishna as Paramatma. So sometimes when we say destiny, if you see the prayers of Bhishma Dev, or Queen Kunti, Sarvam Alakritam Manye. I think this, I believe Bhishma Dev says, this is all the actions of destiny, the time, whatever happened to even Pandavas. Bhishma Dev is lamenting. Time is a big subject, but yes, you're right. Time is actually Krishna. Time is Paramatma, and sometimes it seemingly it is favorable, and seemingly it is not favorable. But ultimately, Paramatma Krishna favors those in the mode of goodness, the devatas. But sometimes when they misbehave, even Brahma, Brihaspati tells them, time is not in your favor right now, so you have to be patient until you again gain back. You have to perform certain things, and then you can gain your kingdom back. In those descriptions also, sometimes you find that time is not favoring you. So ultimately, but time is actually favorable for our spiritual advancement. So materially we see it is good for me, but if we are properly connected with Krishna, it will gradually take us back to Krishna for the devotees.
So Prabhuji, for us, I mean, even in material condition, if there are bad situations, we say bad patch, but devotee, we should continue our chanting more and more. I think that's what our weapon, right, to fight against that bad time.
Yes. So we are basically maybe going through something, but in the end it may not be bad. While going through that one, we may feel bad, but after some time we feel actually, Krishna taught me a lot of lessons through that experience. The only thing we should only time we should feel bad is if we are not doing the right thing, right? If we do wrong things, that should be the cause of feeling bad. Otherwise, even when the times are against us, if we are not losing our integrity, if we are not losing our devotion, then there's nothing to be feeling bad about. But if we take, do things that are against our devotional service, that's a cause of lamentation, right? Whether that happens when seemingly material things are good or when seemingly material things are bad, that's a cause of lamentation. Otherwise, it's okay. For a devotee, it doesn't matter. Whatever situation it may be. The only thing that matters is if I'm doing something against my progress in Krishna consciousness, that is the matter of concern.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I like the way you said about integrity. I think very well said. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So
but in the spiritual world, it's time is conspicuous by its absence, right? I mean, there is no.
Yes.
So in that sense, it's not eternal there.
That's the statement Srila Prabhupada makes. Of course, even the Prakriti is not there in the spiritual world, right? Prakriti is manifesting in the material world,
right.
But it is continuously
cyclic.
Yeah. So in that
sense, it's
context,
eternal.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And talking about time, I mean, I think we do observe good time and bad time according to the, Panchang and things like that. But Purandar Dasa has a song that the day you're chanting the name of the Lord or Vitala is a Shubha Dina, is a auspicious day. The time you're chanting Krishna's names is auspicious time, auspicious Lagna, auspicious Vara, auspicious, day, time, everything. He says week, Shubha Vara, So anytime you're chanting Krishna's name is Shubham, is auspicious. There is no such thing as bad time when you're doing devotional service, he says.
Yes. Om apavitra pavitra va sarvavastangato piva yasmaret punarikaksham sabhyahyambentra shuchi. Right? Take the name of Punarikaksha and everything is clean. In all avastha, sarvastam, all the situations.
Right. It's auspicious, All hours are auspicious.
Yes. So I know we are over time, but because this is the last verse and I wanted devotees to relish what you have accomplished by participating in this Bhagavad Gita. Anyone else want to share anything? Okay. If not, we'll stop here. Thank you very much for your association. Panchakalpatarubhyascha
Kripa
kripasindhubhya
sindhu
eva cha
vacha
patitanam
patitanam
pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo
vaishnavebhyo namo
vaishnavebhyo namo
namaha.
namaha.
Srila
Wonderful
Prabhupada
Krishna
ki
Katha,
jai.
Prabhu. We are going to miss the. I don't know how are we going to start again. The
Yeah,
first verse, I don't know.
I'm also waiting to hear what the next steps are.
Anyway.
Thank you for making these classes lively, Kitamala Mataji, at least for
Oh
me.
no!
You have always been there in my classes and
I hope I don't
encouraging.
have. I hope I have not hogged everybody's time with my questions.
That was nice. It was
Mataji,
your.
maybe tomorrow we will hear again Dharma Kshetra, Kurukshetra.
Maybe you should start the next session, Mataji.
I wouldn't mind hearing it again and again and again.
Hare Krishna. Ganpati Goswami was saying that we'll start from the beginning.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Please, that would be nice.
We want to go
But
back
I
to
have
Dharma
a
Kshetra
request.
again.
If anybody can sell to Pyare Prabhu that we want a summary, because we did the entire 18 chapters, one verse by verse. Maybe we can get a summary.
Mm. Yes.
Yeah, that wouldn't
That's
be
a nice
bad to
idea
start
as
the
well.
Bhagavad Gita with a summary.
Yeah. Just like Sanjay is saying, Samsmritya, Punaha, Punaha.
Yes.
Muhur, we can also do. Muhur, Punaha, Punaha.
And a dunce like me needs to read it about 1,000 times before I even get some of it. So
Yes.
I don't mind reading it again and again and again.
Yes. Thank you, devotees. I'm so happy to be in the association of enthusiastic devotees who have so much taste for Srila Prabhupada's books.
I have enjoyed all of the speakers and all of the devotees who have been in this. It has been such great association.
Yeah.
True, Mataji.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I wish I could hear from Tulsi. Is she
I
there
know.
with us?
Where is Tulsi? She has to
Our
end this.
cheerleader.
Tulsi, where are you?
Don't call me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tulsi.
Tulsi, say Hari Bol, Srila
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Say Srila Prabhupada ki jai and we'll stop.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila
Jai,
Prabhupada
Srila
ki
Prabhupada ki
jai.
jai.